All right, this week we're going to talk about something exciting as usual.
We always have something exciting.
Yes, we do.
At least it's exciting to us.
But this is a question that comes up in everyone's life.
All the time.
No, almost every single day.
Every day.
The question is, should you rent or should you buy? Should you rent or should you buy now?
Somebody should make a song like that.
Should you rent or should you buy now?
Maybe we should keep our day jobs.
Hello, everybody. My name is Barry Horvath, and this is Moving Forward TV with your local market update.
And I am DeLynn Gaston. Thank you so much for joining us. I am the non-singing one of the group.
Yes, and since
hey, we're a group.
We're
getting the band back together.
We're getting the band back together.
I love those commercials.
Oh, I do too.
We don't have a band.
So since we had to keep our day jobs, we're going to continue with the show and give you some valuable information that you may actually be able to use.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I know. I think that this is really good stuff. And I know there's a lot of stuff out there right now with people rent versus buy. We all know a lot of the obvious stuff, and our real estate partners certainly know. And
our real estate partners want everybody to buy.
Well,
but the fact of the matter is, not everyone can buy.
Or they're not ready to buy.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean they can't be ready to buy. So they need to know what we need to do. So this show is really for you to kind of get out. Not only that, I think sometimes people think when a realtor says to them, oh, you really should buy, they're just, oh, you're just after a commission or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. No, there really is some validity behind why.
There are definitely pros, but considerations as to why maybe you shouldn't buy or it's just not the right time.
Right.
So we have some great pros and some, I don't want to say cons, we'll call them considerations.
I think that's what they call them, considerations.
Yeah, considerations. Because there's really no con of owning real estate in my mind, other than, you know, there's a few.
Well, some people will say, well, if the water heater breaks, that means I have to replace it.
Yeah.
you know.
So,
whereas my landlord, but your landlord then is going to go up 15% on your rent next year.
You're right, and you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. So let's talk about some of the reasons why maybe you wouldn't like renting.
Okay.
So the first thing you kind of brought up was the landlord.
Right.
So
spooky.
I know. It is Halloween, you know. I know. Anyway, so the landlord is made up of portrayed as this big evil man, and he's managing these slums, and he's never going to help you out and take care of you and all. But yeah, there's some great landlords.
There's some very nice landlords.
I happen to be one of them.
I was going to say you're one of them.
No, but
the bottom line is it's up to the landlord.
He can put restrictions on what you do and what you have in your home.
For example,
your guests. He could have a restriction on nobody else can be in your home, you know. And a lot of 55, you know what happened in my parents' neighborhood? They're in a 55-plus community, so I'll compare it to that. But a landlord can say, you know what, no one else can suboccupy the premises. No one can rent from you, where if you owned it, you could allow that.
Yeah.
And there's no landlord to even say. But I'll tell you, in my parents' neighborhood, they're in a 55-plus community. They own. A family bought a house, a lady over 55. Well, she thought she could just move her whole kids and stuff in. Well, the HOA didn't like that. So the HOA was the landlord in this case and kicked all the family out.
You definitely can't do that. You know, when you're renting, you are restricted. The landlord has restrictions that they are following. You have to follow their rules. It's not your house, so you have to follow their rules. And what if they say no pets? So you have a dog or you have a cat or something, or you would like
Maybe
one or
you
whatever.
don't.
Now that affects your lifestyle,
Yes,
right? If you're
yes.
single, I know a lot of single people, they like to have a dog or something for protection and just for company and everything. Well,
Agreed.
if you're
Agreed.
renting, you can't.
Agreed. That's a big consideration. Okay, so landlord restrictions is number one. Tax advantages. So there's no tax advantage
Right.
when you are a tenant. So
Whereas if you buy the house, then you get the real estate taxes you get to write off on your income tax to Uncle Sam, and your mortgage interest if you happen to carry a mortgage. Those things are tax deductible, so lowers your tax rate that you have to pay to the IRS.
yeah, you can write off property taxes potentially, and of course interest on there.
Yep.
And depreciation, that's another big thing.
True.
So for some people, they can take the depreciation on it. So my favorite one of why you should buy, and this is one I always point out to people, I think the main reason, if you're leaning towards renting or buying, the reason you should buy is the rent fluctuations.
Right.
Because I'll give you an example, like the properties that I rent out now, you know, those 5-6 years ago were about $1,000 a month. That was normal, maybe $1,100. The same properties now are $1,400 or $1,500.
See, look at that,
per month.
just in a few years.
In a few
so it's
years.
gone up over $100 a year.
Yeah, so where
A month,
where
each year.
if they were in a mortgage, in a 30-year fixed rate mortgage,
Right.
that payment never changes. Mind you, the taxes may go up,
Right.
the insurances may go up, but overall that payment is steady and consistent. So 10 years from now, when you own that house and your mortgage payment is $1,000 a month, it's probably still going to be pretty darn close to $1,000 a month, where rents may be now $2,000.
Up.
So
Right.
that would be, to me, one of the biggest considerations.
And we have an
of
interesting
why.
chart to show them in a few minutes.
Yes, of how that can affect. So
The other thing that I like with point out with landlords, sometimes you're not allowed to paint it. You're not allowed to personalize anything. You're not even allowed to. I remember when we first moved to Florida, we rented a home because we weren't sure, where we were going to be or anything. So we rented a house, and all we did was trim the bushes outside. We trimmed the bushes we thought make the house look nicer.
how'd that work out?
Landlord didn't think so. The landlord was very upset.
He didn't like that.
Nope.
So was there something that at least says, do not trim the bushes?
There was nothing, but again, we were just, just pride of ownership. Even though we didn't own it, just pride of where we lived. And we
Right.
were just cleaning up the house, making it look nicer, wanted to paint and stuff like that. And no, you can't do that sometimes. They do not want you doing that kind of thing.
Big consideration. So
Real big.
I also like to point out that, when you do have the home, you can personalize it to your own touch. Make it your own colors, make it your own.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you want to do something to the wall, you can do it. If you want to move a wall, you can do it.
That's right.
If you want to do
Add on a lanai or something like that, you can do it.
If you
can't do
want to
it
put a closet in it you can do it.
Not only that, if you're renting, why would you want to make those kinds of improvements to someone else's home? Make it to your own home, because those kind of
Yep.
improvements are going to add value to the home.
Yes. Another consideration is that sense of stability. When you own a home, there is a stability to it. In fact, your car insurance may be less. Check with your agent, because you do own a home. You get a homeowner's discount.
You
Because
do.
it does show you have that stability. You're not a gypsy. You're not going to be moving every 6 months, every 7 months, every year. And the insurance companies find that you are actually a lower risk if you are a homeowner versus a renter.
That's very surprising.
I know. Well,
You
they
know?
think married people are more stable too, but
That's true. That's very true. You're right. If you're married, you get discounts as well.
yeah, go figure. What
Isn't
do they
that funny?
know?
So much for wind mitigations. Are there marriage mitigations?
You want a discount? Get married or get a wind mitigation.
You can have a discount.
You can weigh that out as your own personal situation. So the other thing is you're shifting wealth from the landlord to you.
To you.
So you're
And
no longer paying the
building
land.
equity. That's
Yeah.
probably the biggest thing out of all of this. The most no-brainer is you are actually building for your future. Like you said, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, hopefully home prices have appreciated, and now you've built up quite a bit of money so that, you've got a nice little nest egg
And
you're
it-
sitting on.
And it absolutely, it's all about pride of ownership. You can invite your friends over, your families over, over, and And there's some certain amount of pride to being a homeowner. This is my place.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to have more reasons for all this and more coming right up. All right, we're back with more information on should I rent or should I buy? What do you think? There's really no answer. Everybody's
situation is different.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that every single person, in fact, we're going to get into that in a little bit, but not every single person should be buying, quite frankly. Not everyone, you know, they came out years ago and said, oh, every American should buy a house. No?
No, not at all.
Every American should have the opportunity to buy a house, but not every American should buy a house.
Agreed.
Yeah,
And we'll get into the why
difference.
maybe you shouldn't too.
Right.
So, but I love this. You know, maybe people say, well, I can't afford to buy.
Or
Well,
can I? Can I afford to buy a house?
Right. And we'll get into that too. But question is, can you afford to rent? So this is astounding to me. I want you to think about something. So we have this little chart here, and we're going to show you on renting versus buying. So if you pay monthly rent, and I don't know anybody who pays this low anymore, $600 a month.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who pays that much.
$600 a month. After 10 years, you know, you would spend $93,168.
Is that crazy?
Yeah,
Look
after
at that.
20 years, you would spend $246,920. And after 30 years, which
30-year
ironically,
mortgage.
30-year mortgage, ironically the same, $499,855.
So $500,000 you would have paid and have nothing to show for it then. Whereas if you paid a mortgage for 30 years, now you have a house free and clear.
Yep, you would hope anyway. If we jump up again on this chart, and let's go
to something a little more realistic. What do you want to do, like 1,500?
I want to do 1,500, yeah.
Okay.
So 1,500 in monthly rent, if you look at that after 10 years, it's $232,823. After 20 years, $616,561 you paid in rent. And after 30 years, $1.248 million. That's crazy.
$1.2 million. And again, at the end of 30 years, after paying $1.2 million, what do you have to show for it?
A landlord that fixed your toilet a lot.
A landlord that's saying, thank you so much for my $1.2 million
exactly.
that you gave me.
But, you know, and that's the other thing. It doesn't, you know, this doesn't consider, that's assuming your rent payment was actually level
and stayed
for
there
30 years.
Right, which we all know is not going to happen.
We already talked about that. That's not realistic.
No,
so,
not at all.
Anyway, let's talk about, I love this chart.
I know.
When I see that, it makes me say, well, why
really
wouldn't I want to buy?
puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
But there may be some bona fide reasons why you may not want to buy. I mean, we talked about all the, you know, the advantages, building equity, tax deduction, the freedom to change. You don't need to worry about landlord. Let's talk about some of the cons, okay,
right.
of it.
I was just going to say,
considerations.
Considerations,
So
not cons, they're considerations.
One of the considerations is obviously when you are an owner, you are responsible for all maintenance.
Right.
Those shrubs that you trim that you weren't supposed to, well,
I know.
you got to do it. Even though you don't own them, you got to take care of them.
When it's
You're
yours.
responsible as a tenant to maintain them. The water heater breaks, you got to pay
You're
for
responsible.
it. When the AC
Toilet
breaks,
doesn't flush,
yep,
you got to get it
when the garage
fixed.
door jams up, it's your responsibility.
You're calling precision.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you know, and your
Insurance on the
when
house.
Hatters and insurance, remember years ago we had the insurance crisis, the price of premiums went through the roof.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, and you got to deal with that. And we were going to bring a guest on because we have a big prominent insurer in the state of Florida actually folding.
Right.
And we'll talk more about that when we have our guest on the insurance. But now you got to worry about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I've been paying this company that's defunct for all these years, and now I got to find new insurance, and you got to go shop it. So definitely consideration.
As a homeowner,
there's more responsibility in handling all these things. So,
however, again, if you are a renter, maybe you have one of those jobs that you travel a lot. You're all over the place or something, so maybe you shouldn't own. It definitely, renting gives you much more flexibility as far as that's concerned. Because if you're not home to take care of a house, then you're paying somebody else to take care of your house or house sit or something like that. Whereas if you're a renter, you just kind of up and go, and you can...
You do have that freedom. If your job requires you to travel, I would say renting is definitely
a good option.
You know, the other thing, you know, I know the stability of home ownership. No one can ever kick you out of your home on your mortgage. If you pay, you stay. If you don't, you won't, right?
Right.
They're going to foreclose on
That's
you.
the bottom line.
With the landlord, even if you pay, you stay. But let's just say the lease runs up and the landlord decides, I'm going to sell.
And this has been happening a lot
cashing in,
lately
and
because
we hear it.
We do. We hear it all the time because people have
People
been,
are
I've been
cashing in on
renting
the
for
equity.
5 years here, and now all of a sudden my landlord tells me he's going to sell the house.
And you don't have a say in that.
Right.
You know, and most leases actually have a clause that allow the landlord to get out if they decide to sell. And there's no guarantee that new landlord is going to say, oh, I want you to stay.
Right.
You know.
So let's talk about some of the stuff. So in addition to, so now that we've got you ready to, okay, you know what? Now we've got your brain hopefully thinking about, am I a better renter or am I better off buying a house? Let's see, because it takes a lot to get there. So let's see, are you ready to buy a house? And some of the things you need to be considering to get yourself ready to buy the house or to determine, am I ready to buy a house right now or not?
I would say the biggest question I would always ask do you carry significant debt? If you're carrying a ton of debt, you know, it could be tough to buy a house. Not only, you know, you may not qualify, you may be strapping yourself, you may not meet the debt ratio qualifications.
The debt ratios are in place for a reason. They are to bring a comfort level to you. No one wants you getting into something that you're going to lose down the road and get foreclosed on. You don't want to get into a rent that you can't afford either. So we want to make sure that you got a good handle on your debt. And if there's ways of getting it down and paying it off or something like that, then perhaps do those things. But definitely speak with a mortgage loan officer first.
Somebody that is a true loan officer, not an application taker.
Yes, not an application.
An advisor,
talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing. Yeah.
So the other thing is, you know, we talked about all these emergencies. I always like to say you probably need to have some kind of an emergency fund. You can't move in with your last nickel.
Yeah.
You know, you need
well, we're going to be cashing our paychecks on Friday.
Yeah, we'll be ready to close. No, I think you've got to have some kind of an emergency fund because that hot water heater is not a matter of if it's going to break, it's when.
Yes.
You know, like the AC went out of the office today.
Right.
You know, so I know I'm going to have to pull from the emergency fund to get that thing fixed because you all won't work in the office if there's no air conditioning.
So we want to get you into the mindset of saving up anyway. So right now you should be setting the money aside to...
I would say 3 months is a minimum.
Set aside for down payment and things like that. And then once you move into the house, keep that savings up for your emergency fund.
Because your credit card should not be your emergency fund.
Correct.
Yeah. So now, down payment. Do you have enough down payment saved? Well, you know what? Everybody thought in the old days you got to have 20%. We know that you don't.
Not true anymore. You do not have to have 20%.
But you do need typically to have some kind of down payment or at least have some down payment assistance lined up, which there's money available for that
However,
can help you.
It comes with a class. Make sure you go online and check out the down payment assistance program. Educate yourself. There's several different options. All of them require some sort of buyer education. So line yourself up for those classes.
And
they're very good classes anyway.
You know what they're going to teach you?
What
we're telling them right now. But we're going to tell you more right after this break.
Dude, I got this cool...
Consumer advocate, your host, and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
I'm so excited we're back.
I know you are. Just jumping up and down.
I know.
I thought he saw a bug.
I do. I get excited.
He wooed.
It's the little things. So let's continue to talk about renting versus owning, pros, cons, pros and
Last couple of
considerations.
things. Right. Pros and considerations. Last couple of things that we just want you to keep in mind. So the other thing is job stability. Do we have a 2-year work history, or at least in the same line of work, or at least schooling,
were you a student?
education, a student, in line to become
Definitely a consideration
whatever.
to know if you're going to be able to buy.
Yes, because it is something that is going to be asked about. They are going to look for that. Again, does not have to be 2 years in this job. No, it does not.
And
it just has to be in the same line of work.
Yes, and it could be schooling, like you said, too.
Right.
So if you were training in your chosen field, and then you went and got a job in it, boom, you're good.
You're good to
got
go.
2 years. You could have a job for a week.
That's right, and you can
just
still
came
buy a
out of
house,
school.
and that's a lot of people don't realize
No,
that.
they don't. They think, oh, I just started. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I just started this job, even though you were on your previous job 7 years.
I know.
Doing the same
Yeah,
thing.
doesn't
Oh, I
matter.
can't buy for
We don't
another
care.
2 years.
We don't care about that. The other thing is your credit. People think they got to have stellar credit. You don't need stellar credit, but you certainly got to have decent credit.
You should have a good handle on where your credit is. And we don't just mean your credit score, but the trade lines that you have as well.
The
Sometimes,
number of trade lines. 'Cause
Right,
Some
sometimes
people have
people-
limited number of trade lines.
Yeah, they'll maybe have some bad stuff happen in the past, and it's okay. Our biggest thing that we want you to take away with this is don't ignore it. Whatever you do, don't ignore it. Do something about it. It's not going to just disappear. It's not going to go away. The myth of it drops off after 7 years. Well, first, do you want to wait 7 years? But second of all, not necessarily all the time.
Right.
So make sure that you have a handle on your credit. And then other people will say, well, I've started to reestablish. They go out and they have a credit card for 3 months, and they think they're, one credit card with a $300 credit limit, and now they're ready to take on a $200,000 mortgage loan.
Doesn't work that way?
Probably not going to happen.
Why doesn't it work that way?
Yeah, probably not going to happen.
Oh, we got to fix that. We got to change the world.
I have a cup that says that.
We can change the world. So, you know what? These are all things, kind of have your ducks in a row before you contact a realtor.
Before you look online at houses and fall in love with everything you see on Zillow or
Make sure you can
Realtor.com. Don't even bother yet.
qualify. Yeah. And
Before you call a realtor, call us.
yeah, call a lender.
Call a lender, a mortgage
professional.
representative.
Yeah, somebody who knows. And-
Not the person sitting at the bank, not the person sitting there,
Sorry, bank.
Sandy or Kathy, who you see every week when you go and because they're not the mortgage person.
No.
Make sure you call someone who knows what they're talking about.
And prefer,
Preferably us.
Yeah. We like us. And you know what? I'm going to point out something. And I know some of my banking friends will get mad at me, but when you go to an LO, a loan originator, they are regulated by the state. They're licensed. They require continuing education. They got to pass a test. There's more to it today than ever in our industry. And the bank people, they just got to get hired by the bank.
They don't have to do any of the continuing education, and they don't have to have a license.
There's
and they
not
don't have to do any of that.
awesome people that work in
That
the
work
banks.
at banks, I know.
And there are. There are. We don't
And
know
some
any
of them are our
I'm
friends.
just kidding. I'm just
Some
kidding.
of them are our friends. We
No,
do
there
know
really
that.
are some really good people, but
But
they're-
the other thing that happens a lot too that I hear people saying is, they love, Kathy or Sandy at the bank, the teller,
Kathy keeps coming up.
and that's who they talk to. That's who they like,
Right.
and that's who they think is going to handle their mortgage. Next thing they know, they're talking to somebody in North Carolina.
Right, and all they see is the sign, today's rate, in the lobby.
Yeah.
That's on,
Yeah.
they plant the seed. They do a good job of marketing. So, and then once you get pre-qualified, then line up with get with a great realtor. There's so many of them out there now.
Right.
There really are. Somebody who's got a proven track record. And then your other best friend is your insurance agent. 'Cause
Yes.
They're going to help you. And then get aligned, and they'll help you get aligned maybe with a good home inspector as well. So you need that team of people.
It
to
does
help
take, they
through.
say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to buy a house these days
You
too.
think?
You want to have there's
Right.
a lot of moving parts. Somebody said this a long time ago, there's a lot of moving parts that go to it. It's almost impossible for something with all of the people that are involved from the time you start house shopping until the time you're actually being handed keys at a closing. There's so many different hands that it goes through. It's almost impossible for something not to go wrong. But if you have a good team in place, they know how to jump into action and get things fixed.
And maybe a reason why, if you don't want to go through the excitement, home ownership is a joy. It's most people's
is.
dream. But some people don't want to deal with the stress of it and just want to go sign a lease and know what day they're moving in.
Right.
And I get that. I get it. So now,
Everybody's different.
yeah. So if your credit's not there, you have no down payment, no reserves for emergency fund, maybe it's not the right time. But I can tell you this, even though prices are high right now, the market is high, you're still locking in on a 30-year.
And it's going to get higher.
It is.
It will
it may come
continue
back
to go
down,
up. Right.
but it will go back up again.
And
It's
again,
cycles of
like we
the
said,
market.
even if you're not ready right now, maybe your credit's not there, your savings or whatever it might be, maybe your job history or something, whatever it might be, if you talk to a loan originator first, they will line you up. We will line you up. We will tell you what you need to do so that you are ready down the road.
So the decision is yours. Should you rent or should you buy? All right? So if you got questions about it, call us. And let's talk about upcoming events in the community, DeLynn.
We have a lot of upcoming events.
Yeah, we do.
So this part of our show we always dedicate to our favorite charity of choice.
Yes, West Pasco Business Association, WPBA.biz. Check us out online. And they have a lot of great events coming up, and I love it. Get connected with them. So our first thing coming up is November 10th. There is the tailgate for the Buccaneers game. So there are a few spots left, and it is versus Arizona Cardinals. It's on Sunday, of course. We're going to meet up. You can just do the tailgate, or you can just come to the game and do the tailgate with us, and it's going to be a good time. So
I heard it's a great time.
Limited number of tickets. The weather's going to be fantastic, of course. Not a cloud in the sky that day.
Of course. We know that already when it's 2 weeks out or 3
All right.
weeks out.
So enough of that. The next thing on our calendar is November 12th. You do not want to miss it. We're going to do our next month's Lunch and Learn. And we
This
have
is
one
for
every
all
month.
of our realtor partners
Yes.
out
So
there.
if
You
you're a
must be a
realtor-
licensed real estate agent to attend.
Join us on November 12th for the next Lunch and Learn.
Which is
It's
going to be
Tuesday.
about the library. The library has amazing tools that are free to use that
And our realtor partners
we all
them.
need.
They do. I mean, they can get you data on neighborhoods.
All kinds of stuff.
All
It's
kinds of resources.
amazing. I
you'll learn.
had no
This
idea.
is not the library that you had to wash your hands before you checked out a book for. And yeah, you still need a library card, but you know, it's pretty much, it's so different.
all
now.
kinds of good stuff, and we'll learn about that.
Yep. So next,
After our lunch and learn, what do we have next?
we got our
December
December
10th.
5th. No, we have December 5th.
December 5th.
Yeah, thanks for.
I'm reading upside down.
That's all
Sorry.
right. It's all good. Let me read it, okay?
Okay.
Jeez. I don't even know what we're doing now. December 5th, we have our first
Our lightning
lightning
game.
bus trip with the WPBA.biz. So it is going to be a fun bus trip. And
They always are. Fun
yep,
bus trip.
Go online to WPBA.biz. Get your tickets. Limited seating available. The bus will fill up soon. Includes your game tickets, snacks, and the whole deal. And then, of course, our favorite event of the year, How the Grinch Saved Christmas, is on December 13th. I can't believe
That is a
it's
Friday
time.
night, and
Yep.
that is at Spartan Manor as usual. We have sponsorships available if
And
you would like to be a
tickets are
part
on-
of it.
Tickets are online now.
Tickets are online.
Yep.
We are also looking for donations. If you would like to donate either a spirit for the spirit table or a basket
Hey,
with your
DeLynn,
card on it and everything.
Listen, I know you want to tell them all about it,
I
but we
love
gotta
the
go.
Grinch. Call me. I'll tell you all about the Grinch.
All right. Don't forget, like us, share us. We're out there on social media. Find us.
We appreciate everybody watching. We'll see you next week. We are Today and Every Day.
Moving forward. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.